As of Monday morning, I'm a week away from having to have this Malibu loaded on a trailer and headed to Indianapolis. I need to have the car at the convention center in downtown by Tuesday afternoon. But as of right now, the car still doesn't have an engine and the C10 still doesn't have an operational speedometer. So that was job one for Uncle Bucko this morning before we roll the C10 out to bring Mom and Dad's C10 in the shop. This is like the third time that Jeremy's attempted to repair the speedometer, and I'm hoping that this time it works for more than 20 miles. So far we've replaced the speedometer drive gear twice, but this time I think I heard Jeremy mumbling something was wrong with the gear on the output shaft of the transmission. Hopefully, this time it stays working longer than the last time. Anyway, I went ahead and backed it outside and let it warm up for a little bit and made a couple little adjustments to the idle mixture screws on the carburetor. The new 400 sounds really good sitting there warming up out in the driveway. I'm pretty impressed with it so far. Anyway, while I'm out there tinkering with the 64, Jeremy and Kenny go ahead and bring Mom and Dad's new C10 in the shop to come up with a game plan to get the truck cleaned up and the chassis serviced and ready for Mom and Dad to drive it next spring. Meanwhile, I'm headed up the road, pleasantly surprised that my speedometer is once again fully operational. Anyway, while I'm out on my test drive, Jeremy and Kenny decide the best thing to do is to back Mom and Dad's truck out in the driveway, hit it with some purple power, and power wash underneath the hood. Then they plan on bringing it in the shop, put it on the lift, and cleaning underneath of it. And since it's going to be a lengthy process, I decide to take a lengthy test drive in the 64. That way I can make a few adjustments to the carburetor and to the ignition timing while I'm out driving around in it. At this point, I've got the ignition timing turned up as far as I can turn it because the vacuum advance pod on the distributor comes in contact with one of the coolant fittings on the intake. Right now it seems to run pretty decent with the amount of timing that it's got in it, but I really feel like it would run better with the timing locked out. Regardless, it is very noticeable that the more I drive this truck, the more power it seems to make. And I think mostly that's attributed to the break-in process with the stock pistons and stock ring package. The stock rings have considerably more tension against the cylinder walls as compared to the low tension rings that we typically use in our racing engines. I plan to put 400 or 500 miles on it, and then I'll change oil and see what it looks like. Anyway, by the time I got back to the shop, Kenny had already power washed underneath the hood of Mom and Dad's truck, and this thing's looking really, really good. Now that it's all cleaned up, we start taking inventory of what all needs to be replaced and what all still needs to be fixed on this truck to make it roadworthy for Mom and Dad. For the most part, all this truck seems to need is just some routine maintenance. Looking pretty decent.
Not too bad.
Dude, I can't believe how clean that thing is underneath the hood. Like, it's still got paint on the frame.
Yeah. Like, it looks like it's rusty, but you wipe it off. Look here.
You gotta be kidding me. It's just dirt.
Yeah.
Wow. Kenny Powers, I think you've outdone yourself this time.
Cleaned up pretty good.
It did clean up pretty good. All right, so have we compiled a list yet of everything we need from Chumpy?
Yes, I contacted him first thing this morning. I sent him belt numbers.
Yeah, because the power steering belt squeaks like crazy.
That's original.
Huh?
It's the original one.
It's the original belt still on it? Give me a light.
Threads.
Wow.
You know why that is? Because it's an absolute pain in the put a belt on.
So this is your thing. Maintenance. It's right up your alley.
When do I get to maintain my truck?
Oh, well, I thought you just did that.
Yeah, well, now I gotta fix it because I busted a donut gasket hauling this thing back.
All right, so explain to us what your plight is now. You've got a complaint about the roads in Indiana.
Oh, they suck.
Okay. Can we keep this PG-13, like no cussing, so I don't have to go boing every 5 seconds in the video? The roads in Indiana are terrible. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. It was bad.
It was bad. I know. Every time I go over there, I cuss the roads in Indiana. Terrible.
Well, the last bridge coming back into Ohio was a 2-foot drop from the asphalt.
Oh, it couldn't have been 2 feet.
Well, there was about 4 semis about 2 miles down the road sitting on the side with the hazards on after going across the bridge. So I think they would fix something about that.
So what happened on your truck when you went across said bridge?
It dipped down into the bowl where the bridge was, and when I came up the other side, the suspension pushed down and the truck kind of left the ground and the trailer left the ground.
Left the ground?
Yeah.
With this on it?
At 60 miles an hour.
Way to go, bucko.
Yeah.
Good job.
So now my donut gasket's blown out. I'm like a hillbilly driving around.
You sound like a hillbilly? You don't look like one.
It sounds like something you would drive.
Me?
Yeah.
My stuff is top notch.
No, the muffler's falling off, wheels falling off.
You're out of your mind.
I've known you for 46 years at least, so yeah.
So I'm going to head up to see Uncle Bob. While I'm gone, I want you guys to go ahead and pull the wheels off this thing. Check the brakes. Check rear grease seals or axle seals. All that stuff. Copy.
Yeah.
And get a set of shocks put on it. Kenny Powers.
Do some painting.
Yeah. But I'd kind of like for you to put it up on the lift and power wash underneath of it first because it's pretty dirty. You know what I mean?
It'll clean up a lot once he puts it on the lift and power wash.
Yeah, I think it'll clean up really good once you put it up on the lift, hit it with purple power, and hit it with a power washer.
Yeah, as good as this cleaned up, it should clean up pretty good.
All right.
I'll put it on the lift for him because this thing's got dual tanks, so it's kind of a pain in the ass.
You don't say.
Yeah.
So as I head up to see Bob at the machine shop, Jeremy and Kenny make a list of everything they need, and then Jeremy heads down to kick Mark in the nuts.
Oh, look at him with his lit up sign and all. Service. What's going on next door?
I don't know.
Big excitement. Look at that. The whole force and then some.
Nobody knows what's going on at Wendy's, but they're blaming it on Thing 2.
He's been gone for 4 days, so I don't know what he's been doing.
Probably someone angry about getting the wrong part.
The most important thing right now is for Jeremy to bring back enough paint for Kenny.
That's Kenny Powers.
Yeah.
Low
How
gloss.
many do you got?
Not flat. Got 1, 2, 3. I've got 4. 4 of them. Is that enough?
Probably not.
So it looks like we're going to clean Mark out on semi-gloss black, and Jeremy starts giving him trouble about stocking parts.
Might as well just give me a key. I do it faster myself anyway.
Well, no, you don't.
Went to AutoZone the other day because you were closed on Sunday.
Right.
And I needed
Okay,
donut gaskets.
Yeah, how'd that work out for you?
Oh, it was a disaster.
Oh, no.
According to AutoZone, they didn't make a two-wheel drive, and they didn't make a Scottsdale, only Silverado.
You can definitely tell Mark feels bad for Jeremy having to pick on someone else.
For 3 people, and then I got behind the counter and...
Hey.
After Jeremy finished his 45-minute rant about the people at AutoZone, he loaded up his parts and brought everything back to the shop, where he unloaded it for Kenny to sort through. Then he began his 50-point inspection on Kenny's job power washing underneath the truck to make sure Kenny didn't miss a single spot. By this time, I'd made it up to Bob's machine shop, and I go in to check on things and see how everybody's doing. And as usual, everybody's pretty busy. Dawn was working on cleaning up parts in the blasting cabinet, and Uncle Bob had been working on my cylinder heads. And he had also run into a slight problem with my short block. He's got the rings gap, the piston to cylinder wall clearance is good, the rod and main bearing clearances are spot on, thrust clearance and rod side clearance is right, but there was one important detail that Bob wasn't happy with. At top dead center, the pistons are down about 30 thousandths in the bore. The only way to fix it is to deck the block, and it's not a major problem, it's just time consuming. Bob had to pull the pistons and rods and the crankshaft back out of the block, run it through the hot tank, put it up on the mill, and then set it up to take about 29 thousandths off each deck surface. And at 2 thousandths of an inch per cut, it's going to take a few minutes. So Bob works on honing this big block forward block, while my block is on the mill behind him. But I do have some good news. My new camshaft finally showed up from Iski. And now that we have the camshaft in our hands and the cam card, we can start getting the heads ready for the new valve springs that this hydraulic roller camshaft is going to require. Now, valve spring pressure and installed height and valve train geometry is always extremely important, but even more so on a hydraulic roller cam in a small block Chevy. There's literally no room for error. Unless, of course, you don't care how fast it goes. But if you're like me and you want to get every last ounce of power and every bit of RPM out of the engine you can possibly get, valve train geometry and valve spring pressures on a hydraulic roller are absolutely critical. And it was a major contributing factor into how my old 355 ran on nitrous. Anyone who's ever had a hydraulic roller in a small block Chevy will tell you, trying to turn 7,200 RPM through the traps quarter mile takes nothing short of absolute perfection in valve train geometry and in valve spring pressures, both on the seat and over the nose at the lobe of the camshaft. Most hydraulic roller lifters cannot stand the valve spring pressures needed to turn that kind of RPM. But these Isky hydraulic roller lifters made by Johnson can tolerate up to 200 pounds on the seat and up to 450 pounds open pressure. The trick to all this is installed height and push rod length, and we'll dive into that tomorrow once we get the short block reassembled and the camshaft installed. But right now it's time to go home and get a little bit of rest to get up and start all over again tomorrow.
I have good news.
Huh?
I have good news.
What good news?
The signs are on the way.
What signs?
The signs everybody's been waiting on.
Oh, the gasoline and freedom signs.
Yep.
They're made out of unobtainium.
No, they're on the way. Gina had them in her hands today. She said they look great. She sent me a picture. Show them the picture. And I will have them Wednesday. And then Harley will get to shipping them out.
Oh, yeah?
Yep.
Good.
She's got about 250 of them to ship out.
Oh, my God.
And I already ordered another 250.
Jeez. Maybe we'll get those by spring.
Nope, January. But I'm not going to put them on the website just yet. We're just going to wait till it gets closer to when I have them. So, that's good news. And everybody who places an order through the end of this month, November 30th,
yep,
is
still getting entered for that
so
giveaway.
That's through Wednesday at midnight.
Wednesday at midnight is when the carburetor giveaway ends for the ATM carburetor?
Yep.
Okay.
And then we will pick the winner and show it in the video after that, Thursday probably. So.
What else is new today?
Not much.
So that brings us to Tuesday, day 2 of working on Mom and Dad's 1980 C10 pickup truck in the shop. Jeremy went ahead and pulled the rear end cover off first thing this morning so he can change the outer axle seals, and he's pretty excited.
Check this out. It's still gray steel under the head of the bolts. I repeat, still gray steel under the head of the bolts.
Now, Jeremy's used to working on trucks from Ohio, and anything that's in Ohio for 43 years is rusted beyond belief. But not this truck.
Not too shabby.
With only 79,000 original miles, the truck still wears its original brakes and brake drums. So we're going to go ahead and replace the outer axle seals and put new brakes on the back. The front ones still look pretty decent, but we've got to get Kenny all situated with enough paint and undercoating to get the entire underside of this truck coated. But right now, we don't have nearly enough. I had to come down here and get undercoating because I sent Bucko down here to do it the other day, and he only got spray paint. He didn't get any of the undercoating.
I don't know what's wrong with him.
I know what's wrong with him.
What?
I can't say it on camera.
Oh, you can't? No, well, he's getting spoiled here on this truck project. So.
What do you mean?
Well, stuff's just like falling off of it.
Zero. I just took the shock bolt out. As you can see, it's pretty damn nice.
Oh yeah, he's all impressed with it this morning.
Oh yeah, he's all full of himself.
He's called you about it?
Oh yeah, he's already called me. Yeah, and he made fun of me too a couple times via text.
What for?
Well, he just insulted my intelligence.
That's a daily occurrence.
Well, I know, but it was even extra special.
What'd he say?
This time. Well, he thought I didn't know what a blower motor resistor was, and that really hurt my feelings, so.
I think Jeremy's actually really getting under Mark's skin. I can tell you he's starting to get under my skin because my speedometer has already quit working. But at this point, I really don't have time to argue with Jeremy about it. I just need to drop this stuff off for Kenny to keep him working. And for right now, I'm just going to allow Jeremy to think he's got the upper hand on everybody. I got a call from Bob about the time I got back to the shop to let me know that he's got the short block assembled and he's taken a measurement for push rod length. I need a set of push rods exactly 7.3 inches long, and it just so happens Jegs has a set in stock at 11th Avenue. I also needed a new set of intake manifold bolts, a crank bolt, and I needed some new breathers for the valve covers. With a little bit of luck, this should be the last trip I need to make to Jegs to get my Malibu's engine put back together. Meanwhile, back at the shop, Kenny Powers and Uncle Bucko are making good progress on Mom and Dad's pickup. They've got the new axle seals pressed into the axle tubes, the entire chassis painted, all 4 new shocks are installed, and Kenny's taken on a special project for Miss Vicky. Her Christmas tree backdrop came in.
Holy cow, I love it.
And look, there's your sweeper.
She almost didn't notice that Kenny put her sweeper together too.
Oh, my sweeper. Sweet. Dude, that's awesome.
Now Vicky can clean the house up, but Kenny looks like he needs to be cleaned up too.
You're looking like a coal miner today.
You look like a can of Krylon.
Go look in the mirror.
Well, I know I'm beautiful.
Jeremy's on everyone's last nerve, especially Mark. And Mark's got caller ID, so he won't even answer the phone when Jeremy calls anymore. He had to use Kenny's phone to call.
He probably won't.
Surprise, chump hole.
At this point, I think Mark's just about had it with Jeremy.
Got all my stuff ready.
In the box, ready to go.
Jeremy went down to restock Kenny with some more spray paint and to once again insult Mark's intelligence.
What about the resistor?
No, it'd be here tomorrow. It said I didn't know what it was anyway. You had to give a big description about it and stuff.
Well, I just want to make sure you weren't thinking the round thing.
No, I knew exactly what you were talking about.
So Jeremy picks up his parts and goes back to the shop, and this time starts taking apart the speedometer assembly in Dad's truck. The cruise control module had seized up from sitting, so Jeremy took it apart to fix it. Hopefully it works better than my speedometer when he's done. Last but not least, he put a new blower motor in the truck for Dad so that it doesn't squeal.
Well, let's see if it works. Heater motor's working. Next, resistor.
By this time, I've left Jegs, and I'm on my way up to Mount Vernon to go see Bob and drop off these brand new push rods that will hopefully get our valve train situation taken care of. Now, what we are attempting to do is use a solid roller valve spring on a hydraulic roller cam. Bob has ordered in 3 sets of valve springs, 3 sets of retainers, and 2 different sets of keepers in an attempt to make sure that we've got a combination that will give us at least 150 pounds of seat pressure and no more than 450 pounds open pressure. So what we're doing is taking a valve spring intended to be installed at 1/800 and stretching it out to 2-inch installed height to reduce the seat pressure but keep 450 pounds over the nose of the cam. It takes a specific combination of valve spring retainers and keepers to get the installed height of the valve spring where we need it without having to change the length of the valve. The valve spring retainer and the installed height dictates how long the push rod's going to need to be, which in our case was 7.3 inches long. Once we were certain that our valve spring pressures were correct and our valve train geometry was good, next Bob takes the time to degree the cam and then check piston to valve clearance. We ended up with almost 250 thousandths on the intake and 220 thousandths on the exhaust. Next, Bob assembles the heads with the valve springs and retainers and keeps track of valve spring pressures and installed heights so that if he's got a spring that shows it's a little bit light, he'll put it on a valve that has a tight installed height in order to keep all the valve spring pressures as equal as possible. To finish up the short block, Bob mounts the new milling billet oil pump and unboxes the new hamburger oil pan. Now this pan is the same pan that we've run on the S10s for a long time. The milling oil pump is a high pressure standard volume, and with this oil pan we've never had any problems sucking the pan dry. I feel it's just a good universal all-around oil pan that works on just about anything. So anyway, now that we've got the short block complete and the cylinder heads are assembled, tomorrow should be a fairly easy day. We need to put the harmonic balancer on, index the timing pointer before we put the heads on, bolt the heads down with new head gaskets, put the intake on, and assemble the valve train and adjust the valves. As long as we don't run into any unforeseen problems tomorrow, we might even be able to start bolting the engine down onto the dyno by late tomorrow afternoon or early evening, which should put us on schedule for making dyno pulls on Thursday. All right, everybody, welcome back to the shop. It is Tuesday, wait a minute, it's Wednesday morning now. It's raining, as you can probably hear on the roof out here. It's a little bit loud, but we're going to try and get this done because I got to get this video finished up and hopefully get back in there and get to bed so I can get up tomorrow morning and go right back up to Bob's and help him finish up that engine. The guys are still working on Mom and Dad's C10, as you can see over here. The truck's looking really good. They've done a good job painting it. Kenny looked like a coal miner by the time he got out of here today, but he did a good job. The little truck runs really nice. 79,000 original miles. It's almost entirely all original, save for just a few minor things, you know, battery, brakes, maybe some exhaust work, I don't know. But anyway, really getting excited to get the Malibu back together. I can't wait to hear this thing run. I really was considering putting a solid roller in that engine, but I don't know, man. I really don't want the hassle of having to adjust valves or have a valve get loose while I'm out driving around on one of those, what are they, drag and drive events or something like that. Like if I decide to do Sick Week or I don't know, something like that, or maybe another event that we haven't even heard of, maybe one that I put together, I don't know. But that car is kind of a pain to pull the passenger side valve cover on because the AC compressor lines cover the valve cover, so you have to remove the AC compressor just to pull the valve cover off. And it's not really that big of a deal, honestly. It's just a few extra minutes, but I just like the idea of not having to worry about adjusting valves ever. So we'll see how that works out. If it runs good, I'll leave the hydraulic roller in it. If I'm not happy with it, I'll pull it out and I'll put a solid roller back in it and keep right on trucking. But like I said, we're going to be at PRI in a week. Not this weekend, but next weekend. I'll be at the Performance Racing Industry Trade Show in Indianapolis, Indiana, and the Malibu, old Cracker Barrel out there, will be in the Nitrous Express booth. So if you want to come visit me, and Limpy's going to be there, and a few other pretty well-known people are going to be hanging out there. If you want to come see us, PRI, 2 weeks. Well, a little bit less than a week. No, hell, I don't know. I can't even remember what day it is. I'm so tired. It's Wednesday, not this weekend, but next weekend. So however many days that is. Good night, everybody. We'll see you hopefully maybe Friday with a new video. And by the way, if somebody has noticed, yes, the block has not been painted. That's a Kenny job, my Krylon Kenny. I'm gonna have him mask the engine. We'll paint it black before we put it in the Malibu. So don't get upset. Don't worry about it. We'll handle it when we get it back. Good night, everybody.